Welcome back to 1834, where Labourdonnais and McDonnell are playing the unofficial World Chess Championship. The score is 10 games to 2 to Labourdonnais, and he only needs one more game to get 11 games, meaning that he wins the match. It's the best of 21, and draws don't count. So it could be all over this game. Will McDonnell grab another game back? Well, stick around and find out. We have d4, d5, c4, so the Queen's Gambit, which McDonnell accepts, and that's already looking a little bit ominous for McDonnell because they've played 4 Queen's Gambit accepted games and McDonnell's lost every single one of them. But maybe he's got something new to show us, so let's continue and see how he does. e3, e5, the bishop captures on c4, e captures, and e captures, now e captures, and knight to f6, knight to c3, and bishop to e7. So this is exactly the same as the last Queen's Gambit game that was played. Morphy says, see notes on the previous games at the same opening. And basically Morphy says that these moves are all fine up to this point. We have knight to f3 and then castles by McDonnell. Bishop to e3, so developing his other bishop. And a c6. And Morphy says, McDonnell should rather have played bishop to g4 and then have brought out his queen's knight. So development is a priority for Morphy, and he doesn't like this move that just moves another pawn for McDonnell. And I agree with Morphy. We have h3, and we have knight on b to d7, bishop to b3, and knight to b6. And now Labourdonnais castles. And we have knight on f to d5 from McDonnell. And Morphy says, McDonnell has now obtained his favourite position in the Queen's Gambit. It is far from being a commendable one. Okay, so thumbs down from Morphy there. He really doesn't like that move. He was quite mean about it too, but we like mean Morphy, so let's play on. We have a4, a5, knight to e5, so the knight crossing the centre line of the board into black territory. Bishop to e6, and both players are almost fully developed with just their queen left to move off of the back rank. We've got bishop to c2, looking menacingly at the corner pawn, so McDonnell blocks with f5. And on the 15th move, Labourdonnais plays queen to e2. Now Morphy comments on the move before this, the f5 move. He says, f6 with the view of dislodging the knight would have resulted in the same position. Suppose f6, queen to h5, f5, the best move, queen back to e2, and we arrive at the position occurring after white's 15th move in the text. And the 15th move being the Bourdonnais' last actual move that we went through. So some of these moves from Morphy looked a bit weird. Why did he think retreating the queen back here would have been good here? Well, these bishops are looking pretty mean along with the rook, and I think Morphy's worried about the queen getting trapped here, so he thinks that coming back to here would be the best idea. And also this move here, f6, and then f5, why not just take the knight? Well, if you take the knight, then it's a checkmate combination. It's a check here. The king can't move to this square because of the queen, so he has to move here. We have a reveal check, back to g8, and then checkmate, so you couldn't take the knight there. So back to what was actually played, it was f5 directly, then queen to e2 directly, and we continue pushing f4. And the engine said this was not a good move, knight to b4 was actually better, attacking the bishop. But regardless, McDonnell played f4. Bishop retreats to d2, and then we have queen to e8. Rook on a to e1, and bishop back to f7. Now Morphy doesn't like this move. He says, fearing the loss of a pawn by knight captures on c6, etc., black's proper course was to retreat the bishop to d7. Well, with the futuristic technology I have at my fingertips, I can tell you neither move is that much better than the other. The engine actually prefers bishop to f5. However, with this move, McDonnell is eyeing up this square for this attack down the white's diagonal here. So we'll watch out for that in a few moves' time. We have now the game continuing with queen to e4, and that's a threatening checkmate in the corner. And we have g6 to counter it, and then bishop captures f4, and we have an exchange of bishop for knight on f4. Bishop to c4, attacking this rook here, which we mentioned McDonnell was thinking about a few moves ago. And it looks quite nice, but McDonnell has a comment. He says, Black foresaw this move when he played his bishop back to f7. But he evidently did not foresee that he could not capture the rook without immediately losing the game. Okay, so Morphy says capturing this rook will be a massive blunder that will lose the game. So will McDonnell go for it? Will it even lose the game? Is Morphy correct? Let's find out. We have queen up to h6, and now McDonnell captures the rook. And immediately Labourdonnais captures the pawn on g6. We have h captures on g6 and knight captures on g6. Knight to c8, and Morphy says, Black has a lost game, but he might have considerably prolonged the contest by bishop to f6. Let us suppose bishop to f6, rook captures the queen, the best move, rook on f captures the rook, and the king captures the bishop, and the bishop captures the pawn on d4. And although black must ultimately lose owing to white's passed pawns on the king's side, his position is more tenable than that attainable by any other line of play. Okay, well, if we go back to the knight to c8 move, the engine actually says it's a force mate in 6, so McDonnell, you have really badly messed up here. Let's see how it plays out. Queen to h8, which you probably already spotted. The king has one square to go to, so he goes to it. Now this rook is covering this square, so the king's going to be forced to here now. So queen to h7, as we said, the king is forced to there, and the Bourdonnais needs to be careful. There's 2 attackers on this knight now and only 1 defender, so he moves the knight to f4. Now this is an interesting position. Pretty much the only way for black to extend the game even a little bit is bishop to d3. If he instead played some random move, say a pawn here, then this knight's coming to e4 and it's delivering checkmate because it's covering this square, the other knight's covering this square, the pawn's covering this square, and then the queen's covering everything else. So that's a very, very nice checkmate indeed. I like that one. If black instead plays something a bit more purposeful, like knight to d6, then we'd have queen to h6, and now if the king moves here, it's immediate checkmate. Oh, excuse me, immediate checkmate. If the queen blocks, then it's checkmate like this. And if the king comes down to f5, then it's checkmate from the rook, like so. Again, very, very nice. And of course the knight's protected by the queen. So let's show you one more. If the king comes to g5, now we have rook to e5, and then the only thing to prevent the checkmate is the rook blocking, but of course captures, and then everything's finished. So yeah, another very nice checkmate. Okay, so now that we've covered all of those variations, I can tell you that bishop to d3 was actually played because it extends the game 1 extra move. We now have rook to e6 covered by the pawn, which is check. And so king to g5, and then queen to h6 with another check, and now king to f5. And we have, if you can spot it, very nice pawn checkmate on g4. So very nice ending to very nice ending to this game. I appreciated that. Labourdonnais now goes up 11 games to 2, and remember the match is a best of 21 games with draws not counting, so this means that Labourdonnais has won the match. However, I'm not sure what really happened at this point. Maybe it's just the way gentlemen rolled in those days, or maybe best of 21 games was something made up afterwards, but they carried on to play the remaining games in the match, whilst we would normally these days expect them just to finish once somebody reached 11 wins. I like to think that McDonnell just said to him best of 23, and they continued from there. Whatever happened though, I'm sure that Labourdonnais stayed up all night drinking and gambling with his friends, and I've recently found that he likes smoking cigars too, so let's add that into the mix. I'll continue to cover the remaining games though, assisted by my friend Morphy there, so I'll see you next time.